Hello, this is Graham. In this video, I'm going to briefly explore the role and importance of research in counselling and psychotherapy, and look at some of the key concepts that you'll encounter in research. In the UK, the principal professional body representing counsellors and psychotherapists is the BACP. They actually provide comprehensive support for researchers, encouraging their members, including those who don't consider themselves as academics, to engage with it. There's a dedicated team at the association's head office. They hold an annual research conference and publish a quarterly peer-reviewed journal. The BACP funds a number of PhD research projects and promotes those funded elsewhere. All members have access to the International Database of Research Publications known as EBSCO. The headquarters team themselves undertake research on special themes and publish summaries of research in special areas. So why is research so important in counselling? Good research helps to protect clients. It demonstrates the benefits and can identify potential problems, perhaps through the application of the wrong approach with a particular type of presenting issue. Having a clear picture of the typical recovery path for a type of client, we can predict and monitor new clients to make sure that they're progressing at a suitable pace. And by informing prospective clients, they can be helped to make more informed choices about the type of therapy that they would be best suited to. Research isn't just important for the clients, it matters for practitioners too. Every profession has to have a recognised body of knowledge that's based on real evidence. Research provides this and helps move the discipline towards professional status. Members of the BACP commit to an ethical framework, and this requires them to keep suitable records and monitor client progress with a view to being able to conduct research at the grassroots level. Some practitioners worry that by performing research while they're seeing a client, the therapeutic process will be harmed. In fact, evidence shows that the reverse is true. Clients who take part in research tend to feel better sooner. Many counsellors are engaged through agencies like the NHS and charities. These organisations are known as commissioners, and they insist on knowing that the therapies being used will be the most effective and the most efficient, getting the best return for their investment. In the healthcare sector, most commissioners depend on the guidance issued by NICE, and this is based strongly on evidence from research. Without a strong body of evidence, particular therapies are extremely unlikely to be recommended. So research in this case is the first step. It's important to recognise that not all research is performed through counselling and psychotherapy organisations. Research in our field is often carried out in university departments of psychology, sociology, anthropology, medicine, and more. So let's have a look at the ways in which research gets conducted. Virtually all research has a research question, which represents what the researchers are trying to find out. For example, it would be perfectly reasonable for a researcher to ask, is person-centered therapy beneficial for children who've recently experienced the loss of a parent? The research question can sometimes seem incredibly specific, but that's because the researcher knows that they can't study everything to do with the topic, so they refine it down to a manageable level. For example, what adaptations of transpersonal therapy are most effective when working with Australian Indigenous peoples in the context of alcohol dependency? The question that's asked usually determines what methods will be used by the researcher. So, for example, they might use documented case studies, recorded interviews, questionnaires, surveys, or video analysis. It's important to know that there are two fundamental types of research. Quantitative research uses numbers and statistics. So most surveys, for example, will produce this kind of data. Qualitative research doesn't use numbers. So open-ended interviews which produce quotes rather than figures would fall into the qualitative research type. In practice, in the counselling and psychotherapy field, a lot of research draws on both, so it's called mixed methods research. When we're planning our research, it's helpful to consider what sample size we'll need and the size that we can reasonably expect to get. We sometimes have to restrict our data collecting to a clearly defined group of people so that the results can be properly interpreted. For instance, instead of asking hundreds of clients what they thought of their therapy, we might restrict our sample to the clients from 2 different clinics so that we can make a valid comparison between them. Once some research has been done, it's important that it's shared. The most common ways of doing this are to publish it or present it. Some therapists will produce a book. The advantages of this usually come down to the distribution of books, which can get the work out in front of a large audience relatively quickly. However, once a publisher has accepted the idea of a book, there are very few other experts involved in checking the quality of the research or the write-up. So books on the whole have limited credibility. It's relatively easy to get shorter articles published in magazines. However, these are rarely checked by your peers at all. So the gold standard is to publish in an academic journal. These are almost always peer-reviewed before anything appears in print. However, they're also much harder to get into, and some are far more rigorous than others. Apart from the BACP conference that I mentioned earlier, there are many similar events organised around the world, and speaking at one of these can be an important step in your career as a researcher. Places are limited though, and so many new researchers present what is known as a poster. Quite literally, they present their work on large panels in an exhibition space, and then there's a time set aside for participants at the conference to stroll among them and discuss the work. I hope that's given you some ideas about the importance of research, and that you can see that doing research can be a rewarding activity for all practitioners at any stage in their career.